Before gadgets, smoke bombs, or cinematic sleight of hand, World War II espionage faced a brutal reality. If you were spotted, you rarely got a second chance. Urban resistance fighters, couriers, and intelligence handlers operated under constant surveillance. Streets were narrow, lighting was poor, and escape routes were limited. The solution that quietly spread through occupied Europe wasn't technology at all. It was a behavioral and material trick built from fabric, dust, and an understanding of how human vision actually works. This wasn't about magic. It was about becoming visually unimportant, long enough to pass through danger unnoticed. For the first minute of this story, it's important to understand why this mattered. Spies didn't need to disappear forever. They needed 10 seconds. 10 seconds to cross a doorway, blend into rubble, or dissolve into a crowd that suddenly stopped looking at them as a person. That window of time meant survival. Why fabric and dust mattered more than speed? Most people assume escape means movement. World War II field manuals and resistance training taught the opposite. Sudden movement draws the eye. Stillness, texture, and familiarity dissolve it. Fabric was used not as clothing, but as a surface modifier. Dust wasn't dirt, it was camouflage chemistry. Together, they allowed a person to break the silhouette that human brains are wired to detect. Human vision prioritizes edges, contrast, and motion. Spies were trained to disrupt all three at once. A simple scarf, jacket liner, or cloth panel could be draped, twisted, or inverted to change outline instantly. Dust applied to fabric killed reflectivity and unified color tones with the surrounding environment. In bombed cities, dust was everywhere. That wasn't an accident of war. It was a resource. The technique relied on, rapid visual reclassification. A person becomes an object becomes background. When a spy sensed attention, the goal wasn't to run, you see. It was to stop being, human-shaped. Fabric was loosened or wrapped asymmetrically. Shoulders disappeared. Head shape softened. Dust was pressed, not sprinkled, into the cloth to remove clean lines. Historical accounts describe operatives stepping into doorways, against walls, or beside debris piles and transforming their outline in just seconds. To an observer, the mind recalibrated. What had been a person became laundry, a sack, a broken awning, or, just rubble. The observer's attention moved on. This wasn't invisibility. It was misclassification. That distinction really mattered. Now, why was dust the critical element, you might wonder? Clean fabric reflects light differently than its surroundings, and even muted colours when clean can stand out quite a bit. Dust, you see, equalized everything. It flattened contrast, dulled those highlights, and made the fabric look old, static, and, frankly, irrelevant. Spies would often carry fabric that looked intentionally worn, but it was really the dust that made it believable. Urban environments during the Second World War were absolutely layered in fine particulate matter from collapsed buildings, ash brick and plaster. Pressing fabric into that dust would bond it, at least temporarily, making it blend in with its surroundings. The effect, interestingly enough, lasted just long enough to pass inspection without leaving any obvious residue trails behind. Because, written manuals were just too dangerous, this trick was passed along orally and through demonstration. Trainers really emphasized observation over memorization. Recruits were taught to watch where dust naturally collected, how fabric hung on abandoned objects, and how light, fell across static surfaces. The skill wasn't, the cloth. It was the timing. One resistance account describes a courier vanishing against a wall while a patrol passed within arm's reach. The patrol didn't miss him. Their brains just never registered him as a person once his outline broke. For modern viewers, this technique belongs in history, reenactment, theatre film blocking, wilderness concealment, and survival education. The lesson isn't about evasion, it's about perception. Hunters, photographers, and outdoor survivalists use similar principles when blending into terrain without artificial camouflage. The practical takeaway is understanding silhouette control. Loose layers that can change shape quickly matter more than colour. Matte surfaces matter more than pattern. Environmental materials matter more than gear. Practicing this responsibly means working in controlled settings, learning how quickly the human eye abandons objects it doesn't recognize as relevant. This knowledge also informs defensive awareness. Once you understand how easily the eye can be fooled, you become better at spotting anomalies in your environment. So, why did this trick disappear after the war? Well, post-war surveillance shifted toward technology, you see. Cameras, lighting, and those standardized uniforms, they all reduced the effectiveness of purely visual deception. Cities were rebuilt, and dust disappeared. Clean lines returned. The trick wasn't banned or anything like that. It simply lost its environment. But in places where chaos returns, the human eye hasn't changed. That's why this knowledge persists quietly among historians, survival instructors, and those who study how humans actually see the world. The most effective wartime techniques were often the simplest. They didn't rely on tools that could be confiscated or broken. Instead, they relied on understanding perception. This spy trick wasn't about hiding. It was about being ignored. That distinction is why it worked. If you value serious history, forgotten survival knowledge, and the real techniques that shaped wartime intelligence far beyond the movies, do subscribe to the channel. Share this video with fellow history enthusiasts who appreciate the quiet brilliance of methods that never needed electricity, weapons, or special effects to save lives.